What are 3 specific issues in your platform that make you stand out? Briefly. Please don't say, I care, or something vague. Specific issues / ideas that you will address and implement.
Okay, well, I can't ask you to clarify the question. That make me stand out. And I don't know if you mean stand out from my opponent or just stand out. It was not difficult for me to come out and support marriage equality because we are at a point in time where it's a family issue. So many same-sex partnerships really need the stability of being able to have the same rights that married couples do. Whether we want to call everyone a civil union and say marriage is for the church, which would take a very big retooling of our statutes, or whether we want to just call it marriage and leave the statutes as they are, but make sure that we extend that to same-sex couples. Whether it has to do with adoption, with child support, with immigration, these issues are important for the stability of our families. Second, I have come out very strongly in favor of let's re-examine the death penalty and let's look at finding a different way to punish people for crimes other than putting them to death. The execution attempt of Rommel Broom was hideous. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really certain that any of us feel satiated when someone is put to death for having killed another person. I don't ever condone the crime, but we're a civilized society and we're one of the few remaining modern Western societies that even considers this to be an option. Third, I support the Employee Free Choice Act. I supported election because I understand that elections that are held under the current law are not the kinds of elections that are protected or held under our law for you and I to vote. So the Employee Free Choice Act allows employers or employees to come together, collectively bargain with their employer, and we're in a different phase than we were in the 1940s, where there's greater cooperation between employees and employers. It will assure a stronger middle class and a better quality of life for all of us in our communities. Sorry it took a little long on that.
It's okay. Okay, Secretary Brunner, why do you think that you will have a better chance of beating Portman than Mr. Fisher?
In polling that's started from last year on to the current time, but especially last year there was a poll that put about 6 different polls together, and they paired Democratic Senate candidates and Republican Senate candidates against each other, but they looked specifically at how they did with independents. And at that time, among all the Senate candidates they looked at around the country, I polled better than any other Senate candidate against my Republican challenger than anyone else in the country. So Ohio generally, and things may have changed a little bit since the 2008 election, but generally it's been about a third Republican, a third independent, and a third Democrat. And when you saw the victory that Scott Brown realized in Massachusetts, it was the independent voters that he attracted. He was authentic, he was real, he spoke to people's issues, and I believe there are even some Democrats, at least who I saw on CNN, who said they took a chance and voted for him in this race. In the end, I want to do the job because I love public service, and I hope people will see that. And for me, I let my campaign manager worry about where we get the votes from. I just try to do the work now to be a good candidate so that I want people to believe in their government.
Why do you think that you have a better chance of beating Portman than your opponent?
I think when it comes right down to it, it's not about the polls, which are mere snapshots in time. They're not predictors of anything. They never are. What it's about is whether the people of Ohio want somebody who can hit the ground running the day they're elected to the U.S. Senate. Someone who's built coalitions in a legislature, somebody who's run an organization, somebody who has focus on job creation, job expansion, job attraction, and job retention. I think this is a serious business and a serious legislative body at a critical time in our lives. And I believe that the candidate who can convey not just their commitment, but their experience and their record to focusing on the issue that people matter most, that's the candidate who will win this election. And I hope to be able to convince the people of Ohio that Lee Fisher's that candidate.
Tell us all 2 reasons that we should vote for you and not the other candidate. What will you do for Ohioans that makes you the better candidate?
Well, my focus in this race is on Rob Portman. And the reason I say that is because we're going to have a very competitive primary. And I have a great deal of respect for Jennifer, and we've been friends for a long time. But if we do not focus right now, on Rob Portman, then we take a great risk about losing one of the most important Senate seats in America. So I intend to focus on the fact that I'm a candidate who has spent his life on the ground in Ohio. Not just raising a family and going to school, but actually working side by side with people to actually make a difference. Saving jobs and creating jobs and attracting jobs and knowing how to do it in a way that can lift up a community. I believe that as a candidate, what I want to do is simply talk about my record, my experience, my ability to get results, and to do it, frankly, in an independent and common sense ways that can attract the very independents that we're talking about today. I believe that that's my strength as a candidate, and I'll leave it to others to evaluate the strengths of other candidates.
What strategies are you planning to overcome the Republican onslaught?
Well, it's really interesting. My mother is a Republican, but she's one of those moderate Republicans. So I called her this morning to tell her that I had filed my petitions, and she was thrilled, of course. But she said, Jen, she said, you just won't believe it. We're starting to get calls already from people who want money from us. And she said, and my mother's the most polite person in the world. She said, and I just finally hung up. And I said, well, good for you, Mom. And she said, I suppose it makes sense that they would start calling and thinking that they got some power now. And so the Republican onslaught is going to be the Republican onslaught. The question is for the candidate is, do you trust the people? Do you believe that they have valid thoughts, whether they're on the right or the left, and do you respect them, and will you listen to them? So the Republican onslaught can come on, and you know, whether you watch Fox News or MSNBC, everyone has their passions, but I'm going to keep talking from the center of things, from what I know, and listening to everyday, ordinary Ohioans, and I'm going to try to represent their interests. And what I found is that I have a tendency sometimes to attract some of those right-leaning religious voters who value honesty and hard work above anything else.
What strategies are you planning to overcome the Republican onslaught?
I have to tell you in front of Jennifer.
Yes.
It's a secret strategy. You know, my strategy is focusing on the one issue that people care about the most. There's lots of things that go into campaigns, but I'll tell you, all that stuff, completely irrelevant if you do not have a mission and a message that touches people in their gut and in their soul. And I believe, not just now because of this economic crisis, but frankly for a long time, that issue will be the issue of economic security for themselves, their family, for the next generation, best typified by good jobs at good wages that are sustainable into the future, that can build not just new jobs and new businesses, but new industries. That's my strategy.